Hey guys, welcome to another illustration. This is a portrait illustration, which I haven't done a portrait in quite a while, but you're going to see how this painting evolved from one idea to a completely different idea. And when I say one idea to a completely different idea, I mean that this portrait was nothing to do with vegetable themes, and it all of a sudden became a bok choy asparagus vegetable theme going on here. It was originally just a girl with a flower on her head. But as you can see in this is kind of the ideal process really that I enjoy, which is when I create more details and create items with the paintbrush rather than painting it in a sketch that's already made. And the reason why I feel that I like this more is because when I do a full sketch with all the details drawn in, I feel like I'm coloring in a coloring book after that. I don't feel like there's any room for me to be spontaneous and to create spontaneous strokes and style to the painting. I feel like I'm coloring in a painting that I did with a sketch. And there's no problem with that in itself. However, with me, I know that my mind changes when I'm sketching versus when I'm painting. And I want to capture how my mind evolves and paints or draws with a paintbrush rather than with a sketch in Procreate, for example, or in just using plain pencil and paper. I'm gonna go ahead and just dive into this painting. In this part of the painting, I wasn't really sure what I was doing exactly. I know that I wanted the color scheme to be kind of an olive green face and basically the background to be a little bit of that misty blue that I really like. However, when I was drawing the face here, I just couldn't see the light at the end of the tunnel. I saw this and I was like, oh my gosh, what is going on? And it says a lot because really it's very important because the relativity between the background color, which is so light, with the very vibrant dark olive green, says a lot about how colors relate to each other. If I had left it like this, she would obviously be too much of a green olive skin tone. But as you'll see towards the end of the painting, everything goes together because I harmonize this with the background paintings of other greens and other darker features, allowing it to look not as stark as it does right here at the moment. With her hair itself, you'll see that I kind of went in straight with very opaque color, and that's because when I'm doing gradients, pretty much it's set in stone what I want to do in my head and I just put it down. As far as when I'm doing the skin tones, sometimes that changes and that there's variations to it that I add on top of it, like the blush and different shadows and different highlights in there. But as far as the hair, I knew pretty much I wanted like a solid color gradient. And so I just went with it and I didn't want to have to go back and hassle too much with that. So I decided to, hey, let's leave the complexity to the skin tone. As far as the hair, I'm just kind of gradiating between this, like, not, is it maroon? I forgot the color, but it's like a purplish red with red and then flowing into orange and hints of orange yellow. And because this is such an opaque color, I'm leaving a little bit of a messy outline of a leaf or a branch. And that's gonna let me know that I need to put a branch there and I'll work around that. I'm not being too fussy about it because I feel like it's a little bit of a waste of time if I'm too careful about it because I'm going to go over it with an opaque green dark branch anyways, so it doesn't really matter. I just wanted to make sure that I remember that I have that branch there, so I just, kind of left some messy parts out. And at this stage of the painting, as far as her face goes, I like to outline a little bit of her eyes. I like to outline the shapes around the lips and such, maybe add a couple shadows here and there, but I know that I will be going back to it and adding different glazes of of blushes and tones and freckles and little details to it. But I do want to add a little bit of shadow and such just to make sure that, I feel confident about the skin. On a side note, I want to add how excited I am to be finding the medium that I actually really enjoy. I've been going back to gouache here and there. I like watercolor for its feel, but I don't like the look of watercolor. It's too transparent for me and I don't have the patience with the layering. But gouache has this middle feel between acrylic and watercolor, except this is actually acrylic gouache, so it's really more like an acrylic. But anyways, that being said, I'm just excited to finally find a medium that I feel that I can work with for a long time and to have some cohesive work. And I just wanted to put that out there because it's very important for me to get to a point where I feel comfortable. I feel like I've been running around with like a chicken with her head cut off for so long that to finally get to a point where I'm feeling like I'm finally getting to know what type of style, what type of medium, and what type of process I enjoy doing, putting it all together is so relieving to me. And I hope that you guys also find that relief. If you are into gouache as much as I am, feel free to subscribe and to like this video so other people can find this video as well. And if you're just into the process of painting, because there's a lot to learn, even if you don't use this medium, also feel free to subscribe, leave a comment down below, because I really want to know what it is that you guys may either have been trouble with, or maybe you would like to learn a lot more about, or me emphasize a little more about certain aspects of acrylic or acrylic gouache painting. Let me know down below in the comments. Okay, now back to the painting itself. We're doing the branches, and of course with gouache you kind of want to use a darker base and then add light to it. You can do it the other way around too. It's just, I find it easier, more enjoyable, and I think gouache was intended to be this way, to add the darker sections under and then apply the lighter sections over. And here's where the painting takes a complete 180 and I start adding figures that were not intended to be there in the first place. So I add these little vegetable figures, and the figures itself, they're like these little elongated asparagus bok choy hybrids, if you will. And the style itself is inspired a lot by this artist called Maria Tiurina, I'm sorry, but I'm sorry if I butcher her name, but she is one of my biggest inspirations as far as artists. She does watercolor, however, and I don't have the patience for watercolor, so I find that I enjoy looking at her style and looking at the complexity and detail of her style and just kind of integrating it to my style with gouache. And although this isn't on purpose, I'm really glad that my style kind of reminds me of like a 1950s illustration, sort of. There's not a lot of outlining to my style, and I see that a lot of, like, let's say Mary Blair and other 1950s illustrations, sometimes they don't have that outline with the gouache, particularly speaking with gouache paintings. And I like that it kind of, by mistake, resembles kind of a 1950s type of look. So yeah, that's fun. Let me know down below what this kind of style resembles or what it reminds you of. Also, let me know what kind of color scheme is your favorite color scheme. I notice that I gravitate towards the misty blue, very light blues, the olive green, yellows, and oranges. And I'm glad that I go into a few colors rather than just liking all the colors, because then there's like this consistency between my work by mistake, but nonetheless there's consistency. Let's make a story about this painting, shall we? So these are little vegetable children that this gardener grows. She is the queen of her vegetable garden, and these are her little villagers. I would love to see what you guys could come up to add on to this story in the comments below. Maybe these little villagers are actually like little fairies, and they go around stealing seeds from other gardens to plant in their own soil. And I have a feeling that this one with the little puffy clouded white hair is the main character out of these villagers. I don't know, you let me know down below. So now as I continue the painting, my thought process is to add things to balance the painting out. Because as you can see, there's a lot of negative space and I need to fill that up. But what exactly do I fill it up with? This is actually something that I struggle with a lot. I struggle with botanicals in general, and the reason for that is because I haven't studied how botanicals look very much at all. I enjoy people's illustrations, but I haven't actually stepped out in nature and really analyzed the different shapes and the different colors that botanicals have. So a lot of times I gravitate towards these like spiny leaves and branches, and then in the bottom left, or sorry, bottom right, these kind of is it eucalyptus or some type of like, yeah, I think it's eucalyptus leaves type of style. Now you'll see how I go in and add like a second layer to a lot of things that are patchy. And some things I do like to have a little bit of texture and patchiness, but for other things I do want to make sure that it is fairly opaque because I want it to stand out. And quite honestly, having a mixture of transparency and opaque adds a little bit of more interest to the picture anyways, rather than it all just being one type of texture. Now I'm going ahead and drawing a huge bok choy / asparagus hybrid, and all of this is a hybrid because simply I'm too lazy to sit there and analyze what a bok choy and an asparagus looks like. But since I like how they're both kind of shaped in my mind, I just went ahead and kind of created what I thought a bok choy asparagus would look like. Sorry, I started malfunctioning there. Okay, so now we're gonna move on to the flower, which I was kind of leaving for last because quite frankly, I don't know how to paint this flower. I don't know how I want it to go. It looks really nice when I look at it on the screen. However, in real life, it needed a little bit more detail to me than these plain shapes in the petals. And you're gonna see me add a little bit of browns and blues to the petals of the flower, but because I'm scatterbrained, I had to go back to the hair and I had to do highlights in the hair. And the highlights that I'm doing is basically using that misty blue. I find that using a colored highlight, rather a tinted highlight rather than just plain white, works so much better in creating cohesiveness and interest to the piece. And speaking of interest, I noticed that the background itself was lacking a little. I added a little bit of the misty blue to give it a pop and also to differentiate between the objects and the background because these objects are not outlined. So it's not very easy to see where the shape of itself is. So rather than let it kind of confuse the audience, I use these pops of different colors to contrast to make sure that you can tell, yes, this is the shape of a body, this is the shape of a leaf, rather than, hey, where does this end? And this is where I start going back to the flower and I start adding little shadows of brown with a hint of green and then little highlights of blue. I don't necessarily think that necessarily goes with the rest of the painting because a lot of the objects in the painting are more opaque color blocks rather than just these outlines going on and these highlights. But I mean, it is what it is. That's trial and error. You have to learn, and I'm not mad at it. It's not making me focus too much on it. It's just basically I have to take into consideration that if I'm going to outline and put these type of details into one thing, I should kind of try to follow it up in at least other ways. And you know what? In all fairness, with the hair itself, there is a little bit of outline with it. So I think that kind of helps kind of tie everything in together. And here's another perfect example of how the background and the object are kind of flowing in together and you can't tell the difference. So I added some leaves and dark pieces around it just so you could be able to tell the difference that there is this object going across on the top left, and this object being the bok choy. And at this point of the painting is when I start to realize that, yeah, it's done. I don't really need to overwork it. I just added a couple little highlights here and there, sprinkled some stars, but I don't want to overwork it. At this point, anything that I add onto it is simply for the sake of adding things onto it, and there's no reason or rhyme to it. So this is pretty much the end of the painting, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Please let me know down below how I can improve my videos, what you would like to see, what you would like to learn about. And yeah, I hope you guys have a wonderful day. I hope that you make art that you are thoroughly enjoying the process, enjoying the outcome of it, and that you find that kind of style and art and process that you're looking for. All right, guys. So I'll see you in the next video. So thankful for you guys. If you stuck to the end, I am so thankful. You guys are awesome. You really are helping me to bring this dream to life, to create a future and a career in art. So thank you so much. Hope you guys have a wonderful day and see you on the next video. Bye.